The Gap is back. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is our website. You can learn about us there, including our partners. And here on the Focus Group, that would be Deep Discount. You can visit their site by going to ours, FocusGroupRadio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo, which is a shark, and start your shopping extravaganza. Quick reminder, starting in September, we have Criterion Month here on the Focus Group. We're going to be giving away Criterion movies. We're going to be playing a game called John Says Pick That Flick. I'd like to alert you to the fact that thanks to Tim, it is going to be extremely difficult this coming month.
You think so?
Yes, Tim had a very clever idea. He said, I wonder if you can get away with one word. In some cases we can, in some it's 5 words, but it's been an interesting
Rosebud.
Exactly. So that one word would give you the whole movie, right?
Yeah.
So that's starting next week here on the Focus Group and on our companion podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, which you could also learn about at focusgroupradio.com. Mr. Bennett, we are in the final week of calendar summer. I can't call it the penultimate because it would be the last week was the penultimate week, right?
Yes.
Next to last.
And I'm still with you, even though our copywriter Greg had corrected you at the time, that I still think penultimate sounds like the ultimate. Don't you think?
Yeah,
like
I agree.
It's the top of the heap.
The top
Right.
of the heap, yeah.
Top of the heap. Hey, I wanted to share with you, I received a letter from the University of Delaware. I thought it was junk mail. And so I opened it up, and this, I guess, is a lesson for everybody to open up everything. You know, sometimes I don't open up junk mail. There was, for instance, I had thrown away a check once from Costco because I thought it was just a solicitation.
How much was the check for?
Like $120. And they were good enough that I went into the store and said I never got it and, went through the whole thing. But, sometimes these things arrive and it looks like junk. So I got this letter. I think I sent you
You did. And I also added to it a little thing that I wanted to talk about, too, but I'll put it up here. So you got a $2 bill.
So when I opened up, it's a solicitation from a professor in University of Delaware, and they're doing a survey for people that live on the Delaware, South Jersey, and Maryland coast, because they're putting in these windmills, wind farms.
Yeah.
And so they want to see what residents think. So it says here, please go to this website, and you have a PIN number. It's going to take you 20 minutes. So for $2, I don't think that's enough for 20 minutes, but
Still, it's a $2 bill.
So then it says, and as a thank you, we're going to give you a $2 bill, which I thought was so funny. So I got the two, came in, and it's not even folded. It's perfectly shaped. Although I looked at the date on it. It's 2007.
Well, remember what Mark said? That they stay in circulation until they're
bad.
Until they're like crumpled up and destroyed.
Yeah, so this one hasn't even been touched. But I laughed because I thought, I wonder how many people just threw that away. Thinking it was a solicitation. Yeah. So the $2. I thought it was funny that it showed up. I thought it was a joke at first. I thought somebody listened to the show and sent us a $2 bill. But no.
Go ahead, send them. We'll happily
send the twos.
To the picture that you sent me, I added this little meme that I found, which I think you'll relate to. Tim and I used to go to McDonald's quite a lot when we were in high school, and we would now and then order the apple pie. Remember the apple pie?
I love the hot apple pie.
So the picture that I put up here, it says McDonald's making the filling for their apple pies in the 80s, and it shows some guy in like a hazmat suit at a volcano getting lava. Remember how hot those pies were?
Oh my God, you couldn't eat it. It was so hot. Now you'd be sued every time you ate one, right? They'd be sued.
Yeah,
for the heat.
they show metal, like liquid metal being poured, and then the bottom picture they show the picture of the apple pie. But I remember biting into those and sometimes thinking, oh my God, we are going to I'm not going to have a palate left, right?
Yeah, no, it was bad. They were hot. And what I don't understand is I guess they must have known that, and they realized that there was no liability. I think it said on there, the pie you're about to enjoy is extremely hot, caution or something.
Yes.
But they used to deep fry them. I don't think they deep fry them anymore. I think they don't taste as good.
Tim and I we went to I forget what summer it was. Tim picked me up. I think it was the summer of the Scirocco. Maybe it was the orange. It was the Scirocco. Was the white car. And we got our normal McDonald's order, and we decided to get apple pie. And I remember the day distinctly because you read from the package. You actually said, "Get a load of this," because we were both like, "Wow, we can't eat that pie for a while," because you could feel it through the cardboard how hot it was.
Horrible. Yeah.
So they took. So another little item I wanted to bring up that came to us from the dumpster fire, also known as X. This was just a thing about a lady posting something, and she said, a lady behind me on this Delta flight that I'm on is complaining to the flight attendant because they made her check her bag, and there's a ton of room in the overhead bins. Her husband says to the flight attendant, "You know, my wife went to college with the CEO of Delta." And the flight attendant says, "You should have kept in touch."
Right, you'd have been up front.
You would have been flying first, right? So
that's hilarious.
I love when you should have kept in touch. I love when that reminds me of this story. I don't know if I've told this on air. Maybe I have, but my friend Tony and I were down in South Beach many, many, many years ago before they had rehabilitated it. Like it was, a lot of the hotels are boarded up. But we were at this bar after being on the beach, and he met a friend of his again who was an employee, I think, of American Airlines. And he was telling us the story about a woman named Christine who used to fly, and she was like a flight attendant for first class. And she's doing the dinner service one night, and has the plates out, and they're bringing around these potatoes that have come out of the air oven, the hot potato. And she puts them down, and then she hears, Miss, I need to speak to you. And she said, "Well, I'm serving." She goes, "I have a bad potato. I have a bad potato." And she goes, "I'll get right back to you." He keeps hounding her until she finally comes over, and he goes, "Look, this is a bad potato. What are you going to do about it?" And she says, "Well, let's see." So she picks up the potato in the mitt, whatever, and she slaps it 3 times. And she goes, "Bad potato, bad potato, bad potato." And she puts it down. She goes, "It won't give you any more trouble."
See, that story, though, I think is a fake story.
Really?
Have you ever heard that before?
Never heard it before, except for that one.
It's one of those old wives' tales. So obviously, probably somebody did tell it to you guys there and said it was their friend Christina. But that one's gone around a lot. There's a few of those that have gone around a lot.
The urban legends?
The urban legends. There's the one with the guy that goes through the drive-thru and pays for the food, the woman's food. She's beeping her horn. And I've seen people actually post it as if they said it happened to them, but it's constantly repeated. And there's a guy, so he goes and he pays for the food for the woman that's beeping the horn behind him. But then the end of the story is, and then he also took her food, so she had to get back in line and go all the way through again. But yeah, those urban legend things. That one I've heard versions of that one, with the flight attendant also saying, "We've got somebody who does. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who I am?" And then they say, "Excuse me, we have a man in C2C doesn't know who he is. If somebody would like to."
So you've heard that one too. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that, they may have, there was an airline book though that somebody did write, and it could very well have been this woman, I suppose, of all the things that have happened on the airplanes. Somebody gave it to me years ago, but it was stories from the air, different flight attendants that told stories about crazy things that happened.
Here's a weird little thing that happened on Saturday. I was on a bike ride. A long ride. I went up to something called Malden Bridge, which is a town about 15 miles north of our house. And I'm standing by this old post office, like this really old like an old post office, and it's some shade. And I'm having this like waffle thing. It's like an energy thing. And I'm just casually looking across the street at this beautiful house. It's got like 4 pillars in the front, and it has a white fence, and there's a car that's slowly backing down the driveway. I mean, slowly backing down the driveway. And it goes off the driveway, and then it runs right into the fence and pushes one of the posts almost all the way to the ground, like just a slow death of this fence. Then the car pulls forward, back onto the driveway. The passenger side door opens, and a guy hops out, and he goes clockwise around the car. Now I'm looking at the back of the car. And then the driver of the car gets out, but I don't see who it is until they come around the hood, and it's probably his wife. It's a woman. And I hear him saying, "Darn it, darn it, darn it. I've told you about that fence before." And he gets in, she gets in, and he pulls out perfectly between what's now one half of the fence, which is down almost on the grass, and the other half, which is standing. And then they pull away. And I just thought to myself, you can't even script that, right?
Did you laugh? Or were you just...
I laughed out loud. I mean, they didn't even see me across the street. Maybe they did, but I'm chewing this little waffle thinking, you couldn't even write this, right? Like, woman drives into the fence. I told you about that fence. I told you about that fence. Drive right into it. He wasn't overly mad, but, someone's going to have to come out and, like, when I saw the car make contact with the post, I thought it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. It just goes,
You can hear, what's that? What's that noise? Why? You probably hit the fence.
Oh, the things you will see, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So, we also heard through YouTube. Remember last week you did a wonderful piece on, it was Business Birthday. It was the widow of Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
And I think the pronunciation of the name was Geisel, Guysel. And I think the woman who sent the note in said that she went to school with one of them, or she knew the family. So we were struggling with the pronunciation. I know we don't get it right, but it's Geisel, I think.
Geisel?
Yeah.
I thought, I sometimes go to a site called How'd You Say It?
And you plug it in.
And I plug them in, and it gives you versions, and then it gives you an American version, a British version, a in-language version. So I thought I plugged in that one. Maybe I didn't. I know Gebbia I did.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't get it.
Correct.
Sometimes it doesn't get it, like, because there's colloquial pronunciations versus, Anyhow, without further ado, I triggered this a little earlier by accident, but what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
I did this specifically for you because you had your famous Mister Softee T-shirt. Do you still have that?
No. They're not hard to get, but I where I wore it was, of course, very appropriate. But
yes. Well, the headline said, "It's never been harder to be Mister Softee," which I thought was a great headline. And they said at one time there were more than... So Mister Softee it's a franchise ice cream truck. And so at one time there were more than 2,000 Mister Softee trucks in 38 states during the heyday of the 60s. Now there's only about 630 Mister Softee trucks left looping around particular neighborhoods and parks in only 21 states. They said competition and rising costs have hurt sales. And they said that, believe it or not, counterintuitively, when it's really hot, people won't buy ice cream because it melts too much or it gets too messy, and people don't want to be outside, or they're going to have a cold drink rather than ice cream, which I guess they didn't think about that. And they said, considering we've had some of the hottest days in the last 3 years, that sales are down. But the Mister Softee trucks started in 1954 by two brothers out of Philadelphia, James and William Conway, and they had contacted an ad agency to come up with their jingle and a radio commercial, as well as their logo, which is the Mister Softee ice cream cone, which is the little ice cream.
The soft cone with the head is the ice. Yeah.
Yeah. And they decided when they started this ice cream business, they had said that soft serve ice cream was the most popular by far, and you could also do more volume than if you had to scoop it. Mm-hmm. But I would have thought a good humor truck would have been easy, right?
Interesting.
You hand out the good humor things. But so, and when you do get a Mister Softee franchise, they give you a particular area for you to have. And they said, but there's other now, random or rogue trucks that will come into your territory. And/or they started saying how so many convenience stores now, which we didn't have when we were growing up, are selling ice cream.
Yeah.
They said with the pandemic, ice cream has gone up 21% with inflation. And I was wondering if you could guess how much a Mister Softee ice cream cone would go for if you decided to buy one in Manhattan.
So I was going to tell you the story. My neighbor Barbara and I went to the Guggenheim back in end of June, beginning of July, probably in June, and it was a hot day. We got out. After a museum, I usually need a pick-me-up, not because I love art, but so there was a Mister Softee truck on the corner, and I said, do you want a soft serve? And Barbara was like, I haven't had a soft serve in so long. 2 vanilla cones. It was $12, so it's $6 a cone.
Yeah, they said they're averaging about 5, so you actually paid about right, but they said that when they started out, of course, in the 60s, they were only $1, but everything was cheaper then. But they're trying to figure out how to stay relevant. So what they're doing is they're going now to, if you're having a birthday party or having private events, you can order, like people order food trucks, order their Mister Softee truck. There's also an app to tell you where things are. The other thing, or to tell you where the trucks are, the other thing they said that's hurting them, and I didn't even think about this, I guess, until they pointed it out. When we were younger, kids were outside all the time playing. And they said that's not the case anymore. Kids aren't outside playing like they used to play in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so when you would hear the truck come, or the Mister Softee truck would be, or the Good Humor truck around. So they're trying to figure out how to stay relevant. Yeah.
We used to have $1 in our pocket or a bunch of quarters exactly for this. When the ice cream truck, it was a rocket pop, or there was, remember you could order?
Oh yeah, no, we used to love it. But the Good Humor truck, my grandmother had a school bell.
Did she really?
That sounded exactly like the Good Humor bell. And my brother and I, we were in kindergarten, would ring it. And all the kids would come running, and there would be no truck.
Fake out.
Yeah. We'd ring the bell. People would come running, looking for the truck. There was no truck. But it sounded just like the Good Humor Man bell. Mister Softee has a musical, like a jingle.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. There's a whole little soundtrack that plays. We have a couple in our neighborhood, and the trucks look more modern than what you sent. Some have been modernized.
Well, they said the insurance on the trucks has gotten crazy, as has maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
If it breaks down, it costs a bit of money. But it didn't say how much a franchise cost. I was curious as to what it would cost, but it doesn't appear to be cheap.
There's a Mister Softee truck that goes around upstate, and Bob and I puzzle about this because it's rural, and the areas where kids live are more concentrated in certain hamlets or something. But tangential to this, there's on our road now, up the road, there must be a couple families that have kids, and we see the kids. They range in age from probably, I don't know, like 8th or 9th grade down a little bit. And they move around in like a pack, but they're adorable. Like when they have these little bikes they ride, or there's sometimes one of them, this young man who's fairly tall, he'll be jogging, and everybody will be like riding their bikes or running with him. And sometimes they're singing songs, they're making jokes. We call them the Apple Dumpling Gang. You remember Disney had a movie? I don't remember what the whole thing was, but it was the Apple Dumpling Gang. And then there was another movie called The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again or something. Yep. I think they were like kind of daffy bank robbers or something. They were lovable. But we call these kids and if you see them in your car or on a bike ride, they give you the peace sign, they wave, be safe, good to see you. And I thought, and Bob and I are like, isn't this what kids used to do like when we were growing up? They used to roam around the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, a little pack of kids. Oh. The Mister Softee truck, you'll have to order the Softee truck for him.
Next time it comes by, I should go out. Yeah. Make sure I have a lot of $2 bills with me, right? That would be a fun one. Actually, pay in twos.
You're not going to get a lot.
No, you're going to get one cone.
One cone.
All right, what caught my eye is something I shared with Tim earlier in the week. It came across, strangely, it was an ad that was on Newsmax, of all things, and it was picked up on X by one of their, I think it was Aaron Rupar or something, and it's unbelievable that this would be running on a far-right channel, but perhaps you'll see why in a moment. It's called Trumpy Trout. And it's it's one of those animatronic fish. Remember they had the bass that was on the wall? And it famously put in The Sopranos at one point as well. So this is a fish. It's the Make Fishing Great Again is the theme. It comes with lifelike hair, animatronic mouth and fins. Tim thinks the mouth looks like a flesh jack.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
High fidelity audio, one button activation. It's crazy. I captured 2 little sound bites from it. So here's the first one from Trumpy Trout.
Trumpy Trout is an animatronic talking fish with a big personality.
I am the hugely bigliest fish in the pond.
Watch his fins flap and his large mouth move as he makes speech after speech in high-fidelity sound.
Some bass, a bad fish, crazy fish, criminal fish, and druggy fish. But some bass are good fish, and I only love some of them.
So perfectly picked. Like, watch his big mouth move and his fins. Like, I'm thinking to myself.
So it's not a joke, right?
No, it's real. $59.95.
How much?
$59.95. And if you order more than one, and let me just double check the price. If you order more than one, you get a discount. Yeah, $59.99. I'm sorry, money back guarantee. Says 18 different things. It's a foot. It's 12 inches by 12 inches. It's round. And then here's one other clip that came that I pulled out of it.
Mount him to your wall or use the built-in stand to display him proudly on your desk. Now you'll never miss a Trumpy Trout rally.
I'm building a new pond, and the bass will pay for it.
I'm building a new pond, and the bass will pay.
Does anyone see the irony of that it's a total making fun of him, don't you think?
So, Tim, this is why I put this in Caught My Eye, because the more Bob and I would listen to the ad probably 6 times in a row, and we couldn't stop laughing and howling with laughter. And Bob said the same thing you did. He goes, they're running it on Newsmax, which is a far-right channel.
Yeah.
Are his fans buying this? Because everything he says is like this weirdly
it's
like
nonsense.
Finger
Like
in the
him.
eye. Yeah. I'm building a new pond. Some fish are criminals.
Right, I'm the biggest fish at all. Yeah.
So you could go to trumpytrout.com and see for yourself, and I think you'll end up laughing. I'm almost tempted to click the buy button, but
Well, wait
you
a
know.
couple weeks; it'll be on sale. You know,
Yeah, and then Bob
but
reminded
wait,
me-
you can get 2 Trumpy Trouts. Give one to a friend.
give one to a friend.
You know that's coming.
You know it's coming indeed. All right. So that was mine. It was very short, but it was an audio. Caught my eye, I suppose. It has entertained me a great deal. So without further ado, we have a business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So born today, August 28th in 1928, is F. William Free, Forrest William Free. He died January 1st, 2003 at 74. He's an advertising executive, which we'll get into in a second. So, John, this has only happened to me once before, and it's usually somebody who's born, in the 1800s or 1700s, and there's no photography.
You couldn't find
I
a picture of him?
searched and searched and searched, and this guy worked for some very big agencies. He worked for J. Walter Thompson, Foote Cone and Belding. He was president of Marshalk Agency. He worked on Coca-Cola. He's worked on a number of big brands. Not a picture to be found. And I even tried looking up his children, who were listed in his obit, to see if they had something on Facebook, a picture of their father, but no. So it's definitely a Where's Waldo. So Forrest William Free, if you can find a picture of him, I'd be curious to see what he looks like, or why there's no images of him anywhere. I
Tim,
couldn't figure it out.
You are not, I just did a quick search. You could see his gravestone.
Yeah, they have his gravestone and they have some of the work he's done, but no picture. And
That's
I wonder
an
if that was
interesting one.
deliberate. I wonder if that
Maybe,
was
I don't
deliberate.
know.
So he began his ad career in the 1950s, and as I said, he worked for a number of big agencies. And he started out, what he was first known for is they said he introduced some of the first soda brands added by Coca-Cola to the world, which would be Sprite, Tab, and Fresca. And particularly the Fresca campaign he did, they had branded the soda a citrus-flavored drink labeled as a frosty taste of a blizzard. And it was launched in the winter of 1967, and lo and behold, in New York City, the next day there was a major blizzard. And so he went outside with a bottle of Fresca, and it was in the blizzard, and took a picture, and then took a full-page ad out in the New York Times the next day, announcing the launch of Fresca, and said, "I'm sorry," but essentially it was Fresca who created the blizzard, and it got him the presidency of another ad agency that he was with until 1969. They said he's most remembered for some of his controversial advertising, which was labeled sexist, and people protested him.
Mm-hmm.
So National Airlines, he had an ad he did called "I'm Cheryl, Fly Me." And then he did a number of different ones. "I'm Eileen." He took different names. And they were flight attendants, attractive young flight attendants, or as they said, stewardesses. And with a very simple look and suggestive request, these ads appeared in 1971. They were immediately criticized. The National Organization for Women denounced him. They went down and protested in front of the agency. They held up signs saying that he was sexually exploiting women. And then the placards said outside his office building, "I'm Bill, fire me." So he went outside with bouquets of flowers, which is even more, right, stick it in your eye.
Yeah.
He went and handed out bouquets of roses to the protesters to see if they would be happy with him, which, of course, they weren't.
Fan the flames, I'm sure, right?
Right. But the campaign did great. In fact, they said that the increase in revenue plus passenger miles flown really helped out national airlines. Another campaign he got in trouble with, and they said the other issue here was stewardess and flight attendant was just coming into vogue, so they were getting away from saying stewardess. Another well-known campaign he did was for Silva Thin cigarettes. I never heard of them. Did you?
No, but let's remember that back in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of cigarette brands on the market, right?
Yep. So he took, in staying with his theme of being sexist or exploitive of women, the headline went, "Cigarettes are like women. The best ones are thin and rich." And so,
can't believe,
of course, the National Organization for Women went crazy. So in order to counter that, he did a Silva Thins Man, which was a suave smoker with a wraparound sunglasses, thinking that was going to help squelch the problem, but didn't help. He also worked for the Schraff's restaurant chain and came up with a sundae called the Underground Sundae, which was created by him and Andy Warhol, which I thought was interesting.
I wonder what the ice cream flavors were for the Underground Sundae. Didn't
Who
say.
knows? That's interesting. No, it didn't, but that would be interesting to check into. And then one of the last things he did, he worked for an agency called Lawrence, Charles, and Free, where he was the key player, and he actually came up with the idea of the Tequila Sunrise for ads with Jose Cuervo. So we all know what a tequila sunrise is. Tequila and orange juice, I believe, with some lemon juice perhaps. And he died in Pittsburgh, or he was born in Pittsburgh. He died in Millbrook, New York, of complications from lung cancer in 2003. So that's our business.
Good business birthday. I love when you're able to go back to some of these executives and campaigns from those decades. A lot was possible because it's just the way the culture was.
It's the Wild West, right? You could
it
do
was
whatever.
basically, yeah.
And I guess the more provocative you were in some cases, the better. And sex sells, right? We've always heard that in advertising, right? Sex sells.
I think it's still true today.
He did that with National Airlines and with the Silva Thin cigarettes. He was accused of exploiting women to sell product, and it sold product.
I think this is why the show Mad Men did so well when it was on, because it was the heyday of advertising. Anything went.
Yeah.
It was very male dominated on top of that. But you remember, we've heard, like, there's famous stories in the ad industry about, I forget which agency did the original Volkswagen Beetle ad. And the creative director, or one of the agency partners, put the ad up, and the Beetle was like really tiny, like the car was tiny and up in the far right corner. It just said something at the bottom. And the rumor has it that he fought so hard for this ad that he went out on the windowsill or the ledge of the building. "I'll jump if you don't do the ad." Am I
right? No, you're right. There's some craziness.
It could be urban legend, but I mean, I've heard it a number of times. So,
yeah, I think it was what was the precursor
original.
to DDB, I think, was the agency.
Yeah.
But, some of that early Volkswagen advertising, well, a lot of advertising back then was.
Oh, Tim, just as a quick one, last week you profiled quickly at the start of the show a gentleman who passed away who was responsible for the I Love New York,
right?
The iHeart NY. About 6 hours or 5 hours after we recorded the show, I was going downtown and I saw a bunch of, like, a tourist family. Every one of them, 5 of them, had the T-shirt on, "I Love New York." And I just looked at it and I thought, if you knew the history of that, it was done on the back of a cocktail napkin, and now you're proudly wearing it through Times Square. God bless.
Like the Griswolds, I know you didn't watch the movie, but European Vacation, where they went to the Eiffel Tower with berets on with their names all glittered in them. So.
Those movies. I think the first one was my favorite.
It was. I didn't think you watched any of them.
I saw the first one was To Wally World. That was
I thought it was too lowbrow for you. I didn't think you were.
Well,
yes, they're lowbrow.
They are. Yeah, the humor is almost slapstick. Practically harkening back to silent film era. But
you're like Jackie Gleason. I know what's going to happen. I get bored. I turn it off. I know what's
Jackie
coming.
Gleason like that.
Yeah, they asked him. Johnny Carson asked him if he watched any sitcoms or has he watched any. He goes, "I can't." He said, I watched the first minute or two. I know what's going to happen. He goes, they all have the fake laugh track, and I just turn it off and go to PBS.
to watch Sister Boniface, the nun that used to be a forensic scientist solving mysteries, riding a scooter. We were still laughing about that from last week. All right, we do have a shop talk this week for you, and I teased it at the beginning of the article, and it's about Gap. And a while ago, they hired away from Mattel their former CEO, who is now the CEO here over at Gap Industries, which it's not just Gap. It's actually Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic. There's a bunch of brands in there. Athleta, which is a competitor to Lululemon, I suppose. But the gentleman's name is Richard Dickson, and he's now the chief executive of Gap. He's been there for 1 year, and he's been trying to solve the riddle of how do you fix a brand that was so emblematic of simple fashion, I guess is the way I would put it, for so many years. And the reason I hooked into this was I came across on QWERTY a Gap ad that's now airing, and it features Troye Sivan, pop star of the day, dancing in this ad in these really baggy jeans, because that's the new thing that Gap is pushing out. And he did this ad along with Dutch dance troupe CDK. And so many of Troye Sivan's videos feature many of these individuals and their choreography. And they have some famous stuff on YouTube. You could check out CDK or dance troupe CDK. You'll see some great dancing. I fell in love with it, but I realized that the reason it worked for me was because I liked the dancing and I liked the music. And I'm almost saying, I guess what I'm saying is, I think this new CEO is hooking into something that Tim used to talk about for a long time, especially the older Gap and Banana Republic. Is it the fashion that sells, or is it the idea of the brand and how it fits into pop culture? Am I saying that right, Tim?
You're exactly right. And the other thing that he mentioned somewhere along the way is that people forget that in many cases retail or the advertising that goes with it is entertainment.
Yes. He says fashion is entertainment. It's also art, innovation, and culture. I think he's right.
And what a lot of those great Gap ads you're talking about, remembered Khaki Swing, you had mentioned. I hadn't seen all of them. I didn't realize there were so many. There was Khaki Country. There was Go-Go, which you liked, The Holiday. And then, so this is an updated version. I was lost because, well, there's two things. I was wondering whether Richard Dickson goes by Dick. Is he Dick Dickson? I think that'd be interesting.
Dick Dickson.
Dick Dickson. But I was totally. It was funny because before we went on, you were familiar with Troye Sivan.
Troye Sivan, yeah.
I had no idea who he was, and you were like, "What?" And so I really didn't know. He's an actor, right?
No, he's a singer, pop singer from Australia.
Okay, so I still don't. Yeah, and I was trying to look to see if I knew about him. But how did you hear about him, and how did I miss him?
Troye Sivan did a song last summer. Well, it might have been a little longer than that, but he did a song called Rush.
Okay.
And the inspiration was, guess what? Or the title's inspiration was from Rush, the famous brand for poppers.
Oh.
And the video is very sexy. It's got a lot of dancing going on, a lot of very mixed cast, and they all seem to be having a really great time. And I think my friend Ed Rowland introduced me to the video, and that's when I discovered, well, when I found Troye Sivan.
So I was wondering if you listened to it on Sirius XM or something, and I probably should listen to more.
No, I found it first
because I don't
on
listen
YouTube.
to current stuff there. Okay.
No, I agree with you. I agree. And current in terms of Sirius, if you're in the car, it's like a playlist that they keep repeating. It's like not always the most current thing. He had an album that came out, I think it was at the end of last year, which I really like most of the songs on. And again, many of his songs featured some choreography and some really cool hip dancing. So I just fell in love with the vibe, I suppose. And I feel that if the CEO of Gap is tapping into that zeitgeist, that kind of Troye Sivan, pop, whatever, then he's doing the right thing. Because as Tim said a moment ago, like Khaki Swing was kind of a revolutionary ad when that came out. I mean, they would do that freeze frame thing where the girls would jump up in the air and then the camera would rotate and then they would land. And the thing about that ad that I still love to this day, if I watch it, they're all having a ball.
Right.
There's
all of them. Yeah.
And then there's another one called Khaki a Go-Go, and it's a 60s kind of thing. And again, the way they cast it, and for some alchemy, lightning in a bottle, everybody looks like they're having a ball, and you want to be participating. And I felt the same way about this latest Troye Sivan thing. So Wall Street's going to see what they think of the CEO's turnaround. The last quarter, they did very well. But a lot of people are talking about this notion that you can drive someone to a store, but if the product doesn't match the mood that got you through the door, you're going to get turned off. Have you been to a Gap lately?
I've been to a Gap outlet. There's a Gap outlet down here that I've been to, and I was pleasantly surprised because I was able to, again, buy khakis. You know, for a while, I'd say Gap and Banana, I struggled. As Americans and older people that can afford a $50, $60, $100 pair of khakis, you get older, you get fatter. And a lot of these companies did not change. I mean, that was a big problem with Crew and with Gap. So I was happy to see a friend of mine, we both know that worked for years at Gap, said they sell T-shirts. They were always told, don't forget we sell T-shirts and jeans.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And they got away from it. And I think by bringing in this new CEO heading up the company, I think is smart. And he's harkened back to something you tapped into. The entertainment and that smart advertising they did in 1999, 2000, so 25 years ago, and the entertainment aspect of it, and using, as you said, imagery to make you feel emotionally like you'd be part of it. That's exactly what they've done with Troye Sivan, right? You'd want to say, if you were you'd want to be at that party. You'd want to be there and enjoying that. I did laugh because one time you and I, in serious days, were criticized. We did a story about Gap, and you and I kept saying the Gap. And remember, somebody called and yelled at us and said it was supposed to be Gap. It's not the Gap. So I laughed in here because a lot of the article did sometimes the Gap and sometimes just Gap.
Gap, yeah.
And then they also had the store, though, that said the Gap with the advertising. So, but I remember that person kind of calling it very snarky to you and I, saying, "Wait, no, it's not the Gap." Well, the first thing they're saying here is the Gap. So in the article, and then they showed a picture of an old store from the 90s or something, and it actually said the Gap.
The Gap, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was an advertisement. Remember, fall into the Gap.
Yeah.
I mean, that used to be their old advertisement. So I laughed about this. I'll be curious to see what happens. They talk about Amazon and a bunch of other things that have come in and kind of changed retail. They referenced here too how Abercrombie was able to get their footing. I still won't go into Abercrombie anymore.
Agreed.
I just feel like we're too old. I don't know.
And Tim, I think that's a valid point. They're not necessarily speaking to us, are they?
No. And that's why I didn't know. I didn't know that they've rebounded because we're not there. But I did go to Gap because Richard had said we need to get, you need to get new khakis or whatever. And I went in there and found 3 pairs. Boom, boom, boom. T-shirts, again, of good quality, because they said he uncluttered the product mix.
I was going to ask you, okay, because in this Fortune article, they talk about him literally stripping away product that just was not in line with the brand. And so you answered my question, because I wondered how quickly that would show up, how soon he could move things through, how the order system worked. And this whole article and this ad I saw with Troye Sivan has now convinced me that I need to go to the Gap and try on some jeans.
You should.
I avoided them forever because of what Tim was saying about sizing issues. Like Uniqlo is a perfect example of you better have a 31-inch waist.
Yeah, a flat belly and skinny legs. And skinny legs. That's the other thing. The other interesting part about him, and I think you touched on as well, is he came from Mattel, right?
Yeah.
And so they said that he was part of the team where he led the revitalization of Barbie and reinventing her, leading up to the success of the Barbie movie. So he seems to be the new hot shot in retail right now. So hopefully he does well. I love American brands. I love Ralph Lauren. I love Gap. I hope they do well.
Well, and I'm just going to say, repeat something we've said already, but he said here, they named Omnicom Media as their sole ad agency, and he says because they recognize that fashion is entertainment and they know how to work at the speed of culture. I thought that was a really well put together, the speed of culture. We all know that things move. One day you're boom, and the next day you're off the stage, and if you're going to take advantage of that, you got to keep hop frogging to the next thing.
Yep.
But yeah, what an interesting turnaround, because you and I have often, you had a did you have the Zsa Zsa Gabor poster?
I still do. Yeah, I have the Zsa Zsa Gabor one that says Zsa Zsa wore khakis. That was part of that. That was part of the whole swing campaign and everything. Where they did, but it was dead celebrities, and of course she was still alive, so she sued and won, and they had to take the posters down.
But you have one.
It's big. Well, I called, and my friend Kate's like, "You're the fifth call I got today. There's one down on South Street in Philly. I'll save it for you." It was. And I've had a lot of people offer me money for it and ask for it because it was supposed to have been destroyed.
Yes, yeah.
And you could still buy the little pictures. But I didn't realize, again, if you look those up on eBay,
they're expensive.
There were probably, but there were probably 15 other great black and whites, James Dean. And
wore khakis,
and Cagney. And I mean, there were some great Hollywood glamour folks that they had in this campaign that would be great to have them in the poster version. I'm sure somebody has them somewhere. But,
yeah. Well, it's kind of like around that time. That's like when Antonio Sabato was like doing Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
And they were like these really cool pictures. They were sexy, whatever. Of course, he's changed a great deal, but
has he really?
He's very much into the far right tank now. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Madonna would be upset. Didn't Madonna have a thing for him?
I think so. Yeah.
Do you see what's Madonna's? Do you know how old I was? Somebody was as a sidebar here. How old is Oprah? Did you know how old Oprah was or is?
Would I be correct in saying 72?
70.
So okay.
Now she looked damn good at the convention.
Oh, she looked fantastic. Yeah.
But I thought, man, 70. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Madonna's 67 or something. I thought, geez. I wonder if Madonna's collecting Social Security.
Well, can she? Because isn't she decamped? Is she like a citizen of the UK, or she got dual citizenship or something?
Oh, she did? I don't know.
Doesn't she live a lot in London?
Yeah, well, because she was in Portugal because her son was going to play soccer too.
Okay,
who knows? I don't think she needs the $2,000 a month she's getting from Social Security, but
no. Yeah, really.
You'll have to go see her when you're right over there. So yeah, no, that was a good story though, John. I'm glad you found this because I think it was a good shop talk, and it's an American brand that hopefully is back on track. And we'll see because they also control Banana and I've never been in an Athleta. Have you?
Neither have I. No.
And so we'll see what happens. Now the Banana Republic store down here they redid. Although now it's supposedly, I guess he's changed it already, but they were saying they were trying to do this high-end, go back very high-end with high-end goods. Mm-hmm. And that was all scrapped. So hopefully they'll get on track too. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned. So when you're down here, John, you'll have to go to I'll take you to the outlet.
Okay. Is it outlet specialty clothing or is it actual stuff from the main stores?
I think it's a combo.
Because you know how they do that, where they do outlet,
where they make the outlet stuff, so it looks like it, but it's thinner. The cloth isn't as good. There was a Brooks Brothers down here that was great because it actually was last season's stuff. It was but I still didn't need a $900 raincoat. So to me, that was not, even though it was half price, $900 is still a lot of money
for a raincoat.
For a raincoat, right?
I'll give you a garbage bag. I'll put a hole in the top of it
with big toggle buttons. So hey, thanks for joining us here on the Focus Group. We know many of you have been with us for quite some time. We're in our 16th year. You can find all of our media housed at focusgroupradio.com, including our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is released on Tuesdays. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. You'll see them there on our site as well. Click on them and start shopping away. As John announced, next month, September, we're starting our John Says Pick That Flick with our friends at Criterion, with our Criterion collection, and a chance for you to win some great discs and movies. Thanks to our friends at Criterion and Deep Discount. So we hope all of you are out there safe as we go into a holiday weekend. Be sure to don't text to drive, arrive alive. And we'll see you next time on the Focus Group.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.